Welcome everybody back to the Lantern TV Sports Basketball Show. I'm your host, Kevin Lapka, alongside Casey Smith. Just the two of us today. Like over Washington Bill Withers, the famous song, Just the Two of Us. We're going to do a little recap of the last two games, Illinois and Maryland, do a preview of the upcoming games against Nebraska and Michigan State Tuesday and Thursday, respectively. But let's talk about those last two games. Kind of an up and down two games for Ohio State. They go on the road to number 15 at the time, number 15, Illinois, in a crazy environment. You were there. They get the win. Everyone's excited. They're thinking, okay, Ohio State finally gets that statement win against a ranked opponent. And then they go Sunday to Maryland, falter against the Terrapins, lose by 15. A quick recap of those two games, sort of a dichotomy there with the win against a ranked opponent and again a loss against Maryland. Maryland's a good team, not ranked. Chris Holtmann talked today on his show about how they have a lot of talent, just kind of faltered throughout the year. What do you make of those two games for Ohio State? How concerned are you about what happened on Sunday?
I think, like, the one point that you made about dichotomy, that was the best point you could have made, because Ohio State, to go on the road, they get the biggest win of the year. Probably not the best win because obviously beating Duke, number one, but the biggest at the moment, just to keep them in contention for that double bye in the Big Ten tournament. Just going on the road in a hostile environment. They had like these foam hammers or whatever. I got one flown past my head just onto the court. It was a zoo, I swear, at State Farm Arena. But then on Sunday, everything evaporates. Chris Holtmann said the unit there were probably tired. They were just a little bit lazy. Malachi Branham, he scores 31 against Illinois, his second best scoring performance of the year. And then he flips those numbers around and only scores 13 at Maryland. So, I mean, it's just been a tough stretch just with so many games in so few days where it's, all right, you play a game, you get maybe 1, 2 off days, and then you're playing again. So Ohio State, they have 3 games this week. It'll be tough to sort of sustain, and they're kind of going to be limping into that Big Ten tournament.
But hey, that's the kind of atmosphere you face once you get into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. You know, you're not going to have long rest. You're going to have a day of rest, and then you're back on the court. So they're going to have to get used to that style of play. And I mean, they've done that throughout the year. But getting those guys healthy, back on the court, ready to play another opponent once it comes to it in those tournament games. But let's preview the upcoming games. They play Nebraska on Tuesday at home at the Shot. Again, these final 3 games, they've got Nebraska, Michigan State, and Michigan all at home. So you get a nice homestand to end the season, which is really lucky. A lot of teams are not fortunate enough to get that, and they're still in a position. They're going to need a little bit of help to win the regular season, get that double bye in the Big Ten. They're going to need some help to do that, but again, playing 3 games at home is helpful, and they get lucky that they get to play the worst team in the Big Ten in Nebraska at 8-21. This is a team that, you know, we've seen throughout the Big Ten. These teams are going to come out to play any given day. These teams can win, but they are 8-21. The record reflects what they are. Tell us a little bit about Nebraska and what do you expect from them coming to the Shot on Tuesday?
You mentioned their record, Kevin. They now only have 2 wins in the Big Ten this year, and in an odd way, I guess you could say they're playing their best basketball of the season because they snapped a losing streak, a long losing streak, spoiling Penn State's senior day on Sunday with a 93-70 road win. They were in control the entire time. Tears were flowing from the Penn State faithful just at how dominant Nebraska was on the court Sunday. And it was just, like I mentioned, the 2nd win in the conference this year, the 3rd highest total scoring, even including they had a 4 overtime game against NC State. It was one of the most electric games of the year, might I add. Against NC State, 4 overtimes, they scored 100. There was only one more performance in between then in which they scored more than 93 points this year. And Bryce McGowan's right there at the top of their offense. He scored 25 in that win, really to lead them. And that's kind of been the MO all year. Bryce McGowan's, he's in the running for Freshman of the Year right there with Malachi Branham, who's come on of late. That could be a storyline that we're watching. McGowan's versus Branham. Who's going to get that ever elusive Big Ten Player of the Year? He's 8th in the conference with 16.9 points per game. But he's a 6'7" guard, Kevin. And he plays fast and gets downhill. Don't let your size kind of fool you a little bit. He's able to play, really able to get downhill and contributes to Nebraska's 19th fastest pace in the country, something that Ohio State kind of struggles with. And with Chris Holtmann mentioning that the team looks tired, sluggish, especially with this tough stretch of games in the final few days of the regular season, that could be something that really plagues them. If it turns into a track meet, will Ohio State, despite, I mean, Ohio State playing at home with the home crowd behind them, you have these prolific players in E.J. Liddell and Malachi Branham. Does Nebraska's pace kind of keep it close like it was for a long time when Ohio State went on the road earlier this year? But Nebraska, though, like you mentioned, overall, Fred Hoiberg, this is nowhere near where he wants his team to be at. They're 164th in the net this year. They're 0-10 in quad 1 games, which this will be on Tuesday. Ohio State, they're 3-0 in quad 4 games. Nebraska, they're 155th in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted efficiency metric. Ohio State, they're 23rd all the way, 100 spots better than Nebraska there. But like I mentioned, they're the 6th highest scoring offense in the Big Ten. So, I mean, if they're able to use that pace, points per possession is going to be really key in this one. If Nebraska can really run the floor, get spacing, and get downhill against sort of a beaten and battered Ohio State defense with Zed Key most recently getting hurt, I think this could be a lot closer than people expect. And I could see this being like, I don't know, Ohio State win by 4 or 5, but I could also I could also see Ohio State like also just outmanning them, where sort of that talent takes over and Ohio State runs away with it.
I mean, I think what you're alluding to is the possibility of Ohio State coming off slow in the first half, like they have in a lot of games this year against opponents who are, quote, not as good as them from a record standpoint. They start off slow, and at halftime, we're doing the highlights. We're like, oh, we can't write the full script yet because we don't know where this one's going to go. Ohio State might be down, and then they come back and they, do like what they did to Minnesota, outscore Minnesota by like 27 in the second half, although being down 4 at halftime. You could see something like that for Nebraska, but that's why, when we do our Twitter spaces, we always get people who come in and say, Ohio State, the key for them, come for these final 3 games and then eventually tournament time is consistency. They got to play, and Holman alludes to that all the time. It's like, we got to play consistent basketball, full 20-minute halves. They got to do that against Nebraska. Can't take any team for granted. Now you go on Thursday to Michigan State, or Michigan State comes here to the Shot. You play them, the Spartans, a team that is always in it against the better teams, and they do get wins against good teams. They've beaten Purdue just a few weeks ago. They've held it close with Illinois a few times. This is a team that, led by Tom Izzo year after year, is going to be competitive and are once again competitive this year, 19-9 on the season. Quality team coming to the Shot. This is one of those games where I could see Michigan State coming in and pulling off the upset if Ohio State doesn't play a complete game of basketball, if they don't get the same scoring from Malachi Branham like they have. If Zed Key goes down, you have to have the conversation about or if he is out, which we don't know the current status of him, is, do you roll with a small ball lineup? Does Joey Brunk just slot in there at center? Let's talk about Michigan State a little bit in this final second to last game of the year for Ohio State.
I'm glad that you mentioned Tom Izzo right there at the top, leading this team. Never count Michigan State out. John Rothstein, friend of the show, his thing is January, February, Izzo, April, May. So Tom Izzo, he's always going to have his boys ready to play when the bright lights shine, especially in March. They're coming off a historic performance. They etched their name into the history book, beating number 4 Purdue as part of those 1 through 6 that fell on Saturday. They were able to snap their 3-game losing streak and holding Purdue 1 for 9 from deep, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. Meanwhile, they're right there 11th in the country in 3-point shooting. They shot at a 9 for 20 clip. So they're 11th best in the country in 3-point percentage. 5 players on the Spartans have at least 50 3-point attempts. Get this, Kevin. Only one of those 5 is shooting below 36%.
Wow.
Just wrap your brain around how dominant that is. And 3 guys, 3 of the 5, Joey Hauser, Malik Hall, and Tyson Walker, are shooting above 40%. And I mean, they're just able, if they're able to get hot, like, who knows? This could turn into a real blowout. I remember watching Michigan State, Ohio State in the mid-2000s, 2010s and stuff. Michigan State just dominated the series, and it would get ugly, Kevin. It would just be, I mean, Tom Izzo would have the boys ready to go, and I mean, Ohio State would just be left scratching their heads. So, I mean, Tom Izzo, he's one of the best in the business. After this year, he's going to be one of the best in the business after Coach K leaves, after Roy Williams leaving last year. They're 33rd in the net, 34th in Ken Pom adjusted efficiency metric. So, yeah, I mean, Ohio State, they're allowing teams to shoot 33.1% from beyond the arc. That's right there in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten. But if Ohio State can kind of play that perimeter defense, guard the perimeter, limit the threes, I think Ohio State will be able to keep it close at the very least and potentially come away with, I guess you could call it an upset victory, just with how down the stretch Ohio State's been playing, where they play up to competition and then they play down to competition. They play up to competition, they play down to competition. So I could see this going a number of ways. I think Ohio State, they hang on, and I could see them definitely closing out this 3-game homestand, in which they're 12-1 at home on the year.
You were talking about Nebraska a little bit earlier, saying, you know, they're getting hot, you could say, getting hot at the right time. And that, you know, this happens in every sport at any level. Getting hot at the right time is really important. You can carry the momentum into the playoffs, into the tournaments, if you get hot at the right time. You know, you can get hot in January and February, that's fine. If you start to get hot and start to play really well, you know, the final week of February, early weeks of March, into the tournament, into the NCAA tournament, you know, that's where you become dangerous. It's not necessarily what has happened throughout the course of the year, but if you start to play your best basketball now, that's where teams start to get a little bit nervous. And that's where, you know, if you're one of the people who was picking your teams on the ESPN bracket app, you know, you look at Ohio State's last 3 games, and if they come away with 3 wins, you might feel comfortable taking them in that first round, assuming that they get there, which I think we believe it's all but a lock that they will. It's just a matter of what seed they will be this year. Hopefully not the 2 seed. Hopefully the luck is different this year with that. But it's about getting hot at the right time. Closing the season out with 3 wins is the exact right way to do that. So
yeah, for sure. And I think really taking it to Nebraska on Tuesday, really getting back to the fundamentals and cleaning up some of the issues that Ohio State's had is the importance in driving this 3-game homestand. Ohio State in the last 6 games, in 5 of them, they've given up 10 or more offensive rebounds. That was sort of a bugaboo earlier in the season that they cleaned up. They were able to limit teams, crash offensive glass, but Nebraska, they're 343rd in offensive rebounding percentage, and I think that could be where the game is won and lost. So if Nebraska is able to get a lot of those second chance opportunities that they're not necessarily getting, that could prove detrimental for Ohio State, especially down the stretch.
Yep.
And then carrying that momentum against Michigan State. I think the key in that game is limiting Michigan State getting to the free throw line. One of the best free throw shooting teams in the Big Ten, led right there at the top by Gabe Brown, shooting 91%, 53 of 58 at the charity stripe. Charity must be open for Gabe Brown. He's converting at a 91% clip, everybody. Oh my geez. I couldn't do that in my sleep. But no, I mean, Ohio State, if they're able to carry this momentum and get these 2 wins, setting up that rivalry game at home against Michigan, I think you could have a culmination of storylines coming into that final day of the season, heading into the Big Ten tournament, and hopefully getting that double bye, which will help Ohio State especially be able to rest.
So what needs to happen? So they are put in position that if they get a win on Sunday against Michigan, that would lock in the double bye and the regular season title for Ohio State. What needs to happen for them to get there? They're currently trailing a few teams.
They're 4th in the Big Ten right now. The top 4 teams get that double bye.
Right.
So they control their own destiny. So they just have to win out. And as long as they win out, they control their own destiny. They are getting that double bye, and they're playing on Friday as opposed to having to play Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's impossible, mathematically impossible for them to play on that first day because those are some of the bottom seeds.
Yeah.
But Thursday certainly within the realm of possibility if Ohio State falters against either Michigan State or Michigan.
So the Buckeyes control their own destiny. They got 2 upcoming. Nebraska on Tuesday, Michigan State on Thursday at the Shot. We'll be there here at Lantern TV getting highlights for you. For myself, Kevin Lapka, for KC Smith. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the Lantern TV Sports Basketball Show. Take care.